Captain Kim Soo pressed his palm against the cool metal of the observation deck window, watching the endless stars drift past the new dawn. 3 months into their deep space mission, his crew had found nothing but empty void and distant planets, with no signs of life. The silence was starting to get to everyone. "Captain, you need to see this," Park Min called from the bridge, his voice tight with excitement and fear. Soo rushed back to find his officers staring at the main screen. What he saw made his breath catch. A massive ship hung in space ahead of them, but it wasn't like anything in Earth's databases. The vessel looked like it was carved from a single piece of crystal, its surface catching and reflecting starlight in impossible ways. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "How big is it?" Soo asked, settling into his command chair. "3 times our size, sir," reported Lee Na from her engineering station. "But here's the strange part. It's not showing any hostile energy signatures, no weapons charging, no shields up. It's just waiting." Choi Ho, the ship's security chief, frowned at his tactical display. "Could be a trap, Captain. We've never seen technology like this before." That's when the music started. It began as a soft humming that seemed to come from the walls themselves. The crew looked around in confusion as the sound grew stronger, more complex. It wasn't just noise. It was a melody so beautiful it made some of the younger officers tear up. But strangest of all, somehow they could understand it. "Welcome, travelers from the blue world," the music seemed to say. "We have been waiting for you." Park Min checked his instruments frantically. "Sir, they're not using any communication frequencies we know. This is impossible." The melody continued, and now it carried more meaning. "We are the Velari. We mean no harm. We have watched your kind from afar and wish to meet you properly." Soo felt his heart racing. First contact with an alien species, something humanity had dreamed of for centuries. But following protocol meant waiting for backup, sending messages, back to Earth and possibly losing this chance forever. "They're requesting permission to bring a small group aboard their ship," Park Min translated, as the music shifted. "They say they have much to discuss." "Absolutely not," Choi Ho said immediately. "We don't know anything about them. They could be planning to capture us." Lee Na looked up from her console. "Captain, I'm reading incredible energy signatures from their ship. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. If they wanted to hurt us, they wouldn't need to trick us." The music played again, and this time it carried a sense of sadness. "We understand your fear, but time grows short. What we must share cannot. Wait for your people's slow protocols." Soo closed his eyes and made the decision that would change everything. "Min, Ho, Na, suit up. We're going aboard." "Sir, that's against every regulation in the book," Park Min protested. "Sometimes the book doesn't have answers for situations like this," Soo replied, standing up. "If they wanted us dead, we'd already be dead. But if we miss this opportunity, we might never get another one." As they prepared to transfer to the alien vessel, Soo couldn't shake the feeling that this moment would be remembered as the day humanity's destiny among the stars truly began. The crystal ship waited patiently, its music growing softer, more welcoming. None of them could have imagined what they were about to discover. The transport beam dissolved around them, and Kim Soo found himself standing in what could only be described as a living cathedral. The walls weren't made of metal or plastic like human ships. They were crystal that pulsed with soft, warm light. The light moved like slow rivers through the transparent surfaces, creating patterns that shifted and changed as they watched. "This is incredible," Lee Na whispered, reaching out to touch the nearest wall. The crystal responded to her touch, brightening and sending ripples of light in all directions. Choi Ho kept his hand near his weapon, but even he seemed mesmerized by the beauty around them. The floor beneath their feet was smooth and warm, made of the same living crystal that seemed to know exactly where they wanted to step. "Welcome, friends from Earth." The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, like wind through leaves. They turned to see 3 figures approaching through an archway that formed itself as they walked. The beings were tall, nearly 7 feet, with skin so pale it was almost transparent. Soo could see what looked like light flowing through their bodies instead of blood. The one in the center was clearly their leader. She wore no crown but somehow radiated authority and grace. Her eyes were the color of deep ocean water, and when she spoke, her voice sounded like the most beautiful music Sue had ever heard. "I am Queen Alara of the Velari," she said, bowing slightly. "We have waited so long to meet you properly." "Park," Min stepped forward nervously. "Your Majesty, we are honored by your welcome. I'm First Officer Park Min, and this is our Captain Kim Sue." Alara smiled, and the expression made the crystal walls around them glow brighter. "Captain Sue, your name has been spoken in our halls for many months. We have watched your species with great interest." "You've been watching us?" Sue asked, trying to keep his voice steady. "For decades," Alara replied, gesturing for them to follow her deeper into the ship. As they walked, the walls showed them images. Earth from space, human cities, children playing in parks. "Your world fascinated us. Such chaos, such constant change and growth. We envied you." Li Na looked confused. "Envied us? But your technology." "He's so advanced. Your ship is like nothing we could ever build." Queen Alara's expression grew sad, and the light in the walls dimmed. "Technology is not everything, dear engineer. We have achieved something your people might call perfection. No wars, no diseases, no conflicts. Every Velari thinks in harmony with every other. We have eliminated chaos from our existence. That sounds wonderful," Park Min said. "It is death," Alara replied quietly. "We discovered too late that chaos is not the enemy of life. It is life itself. Without conflict, without change, without the beautiful messiness of growth, we have become, like our crystal ships, beautiful but no longer truly alive." Choi Ho frowned. "What do you mean?" Alara stopped walking and turned to face them fully. "We cannot reproduce anymore. We cannot create new ideas. We cannot adapt or change. Our perfection has become our prison. In seeking to eliminate all problems, we eliminated our ability to solve them." The walls around them showed images of empty Velari cities, beautiful but lifeless. "We have maybe a generation left before the last of us fades away. That is why we have been searching the galaxy for a species that still remembers how to be, gloriously, chaotically alive." Sue felt a chill run down his spine. "And you think humans are that species?" Queen Alara's smile returned, sad but hopeful. "Captain, in the past hour your crew has made 17 decisions that defied your own protocols. You have argued, disagreed, and found creative solutions to problems that would have taken us months to process through our councils. You are exactly what we have been searching for." The Crystal Palace hummed around them, as if the ship itself was listening to every word. Queen Alara led them to a circular chamber where the crystal walls rose high above their heads, forming a dome that showed the stars beyond. But as they entered, the stars began to change, showing different scenes like a massive movie screen. "What you see now was once our empire," Alara said, her voice filled with ancient sadness. The dome showed incredible cities of crystal and light, stretching across dozens of planets. Ships that looked like flying cathedrals moved between worlds, and millions of Velari lived in perfect harmony. Everything was clean, organized, and beautiful beyond imagination. "We controlled 47 star systems," Alara explained. "Every world was paradise, no crime, no war, no suffering. We thought we had achieved the ultimate civilization." Choi Ho watched the images with amazement. "It looks incredible." "What happened?" "We happened," Alara said quietly. "We became so focused on perfection that we forgot what made us alive in the first place." The scenes began to change. The bustling cities became quieter. The flying ships moved less frequently. The Velari in the images seemed to move more slowly, their faces showing less emotion. "We eliminated every problem," Queen Alara continued. "Hunger, disease, conflict, even disagreement. Our councils could predict every outcome, solve every challenge before it arose. We thought this was wisdom." Li Na looked troubled. "But that sounds like a good thing." "That's what we believed," Alara replied. "But watch what happened next." The dome showed Velari cities where nothing ever changed. The same beautiful buildings stood exactly as they had for centuries. The same perfect gardens grew in identical patterns. The Velari moved through their days following routines that never varied. We stopped creating new art because we had already made the perfect art. We stopped exploring because we had already found the perfect worlds. We stopped having children because we had already achieved the perfect population size. Captain Sue felt his stomach sink as he began to understand. You stopped growing. Exactly, Alara said. And without growth, without change, without the constant challenge of solving new problems, we began to fade. The images showed the final stage, empty cities with lights still glowing, but no people to be seen. Beautiful crystal gardens tended by machines, but no Velari to enjoy them. May I show you directly? Queen Alara asked, extending her hand towards Sue. It will help you understand what we face. Sue looked at his crew. Park Min nodded encouragingly while Choi Ho looked worried. Li Na seemed fascinated by the alien technology. Will it hurt? Sue asked. No, Alara assured him, but you will. Feel what we feel. You will see what we have lost. Sue took her hand, and immediately his mind filled with visions that felt more real than reality itself. He saw the last Velari children being born 300 years ago. He felt the gradual emptiness as their society became too perfect to sustain life. He experienced the desperate loneliness of a species watching itself slowly disappear. But most importantly, he felt their hope when they first detected radio signals from Earth. We have tested 43 different species, Alara said as the visions faded. The Korathi were too logical. The Zenthi were too emotional. The Belgran were too peaceful. Every race we found was missing something crucial. What's that? Park Min asked. The ability to be perfectly imperfect, she replied. To make mistakes and learn from them. To argue and then find compromise. To create chaos and then find order within it. To change and adapt constantly without losing who you are. Sue released her hand, his mind still reeling from the shared experience. And you think humans have this? Queen Alara smiled, and for the first time since they'd met her, the expression seemed genuinely hopeful. Captain, in the time since you've been aboard our ship, your engineer has touched our walls 17 times out of curiosity. Your security. Chief has questioned every decision while still following orders, and your first officer has come up with 3 different backup plans for situations that haven't happened yet. She gestured to all of them. You are beautifully, chaotically, perfectly alive. You are what we need to remember how to be. The weight of an entire civilization's survival suddenly rested on their shoulders. I'll do it, Captain Kim Soo said. Without hesitation, Queen Alara looked surprised. Captain, you don't understand. This test has broken the minds of some species. Others have been trapped in the chamber for days, unable to complete even the first challenge. What exactly does the test involve? Park Min asked, his concern obvious. The chamber responds to consciousness itself, Alara explained. It creates situations that have no perfect solution, environments that change based on the subject's emotions and thoughts. Most beings try to find the one correct answer. They fail because there isn't one. Choi Ho stepped forward. Sir, maybe we should think about this more carefully. But Sue was already walking toward the chamber entrance that had appeared in the crystal wall. If this is the only way to help both our species, then we do it. Besides, I've been dealing with impossible situations my whole military career. Li Na smiled despite her worry. That's true. Remember the reactor crisis on Europa Station? No one thought that could be fixed either. The chamber was a simple sphere made of the same living crystal as the rest of the ship. As soon as Sue stepped inside, the walls began to glow and change. His crew watched nervously from outside as Queen Alara explained what they were seeing. The first test appeared around Sue, a maze that kept changing its walls every time he took a step. Other species had tried to map it perfectly before moving. But the maze changed faster than they could calculate. Sue took a different approach. He started walking without any plan at all, letting his instincts guide him. When a wall appeared in front of him, he'd turn randomly left or right. When the path split, he'd flip an imaginary coin in his head. Within minutes, he'd found the exit. Impossible, Queen Alara whispered. The Korathi spent 3 days trying to solve that mathematically. The second test was even stranger. The chamber filled with what looked like a storm, but the weather changed based on Sue's emotions. When he felt frustrated, lightning struck. When he felt scared, the wind got stronger. When he felt calm, everything stopped. But then nothing happened at all. Other species had tried to maintain perfect emotional control. Sue did something different. He let himself feel everything: fear, excitement, anger, joy, curiosity, all at the same time. The storm became chaotic but somehow balanced, creating a path through the chaos that led to safety. He's not trying to control it, Linar observed. He's dancing with it. The third test was the hardest. Sue found himself in a room with 100 doors, each leading to a different disaster. Behind one door was his ship being destroyed. Behind another was Earth under attack. Behind others were his crew members in danger. He had to choose which door to open, knowing that opening any door would make that disaster real somewhere in the universe. The logical choice was to open no doors and save everyone, but that meant staying trapped forever. Other species had chosen the door with the least terrible outcome, trying to minimize damage through calculation. Sue walked to the center of the room and opened every single door at once. The chamber exploded. With chaos, images of disasters, sounds of destruction, flashing lights and terrible scenarios. But instead of trying to stop any of it, Sue stood in the middle and started looking for patterns. He began connecting the disasters, finding ways they could cancel each other out, turning the chaos into a complex but workable system. When the noise finally stopped, every disaster had been transformed into a solution for another disaster. The exploding star provided energy for the dying planet. The invading fleet became defenders against the real threat. The personal tragedies became the motivation for great discoveries. Queen Alara stared in amazement as Sue stepped out of the chamber, looking tired but satisfied. "How?" she asked simply. Sue shrugged. "I stopped trying to find the right answer and started looking for an answer that worked. Sometimes the best solution isn't the perfect one. It's the one that turns problems into opportunities." Park Min grinned. "That's the most human thing I've ever heard." "Indeed it is," Queen Alara said softly. "Captain Kim Sue, you have just proven what we hoped but dared not believe. Humanity truly is the key to our survival." The crystal chamber fell silent as Captain Kim Sue stepped out, still catching his breath from the test. Queen Alara's expression had changed completely. Where before there had been hope mixed with doubt, now there was something deeper, more intense. "Captain," she said quietly, "we must speak privately." Park Min started to object, but Sue held up a hand. "It's okay. Stay here with the others." Queen Alara led him through a corridor that formed itself as they walked, the walls glowing softly around them. They entered a smaller chamber where the crystal walls showed images of space, making it feel like they were floating among the stars. "What you accomplished in there," Alara began. "No other being in the galaxy has managed. But now I must tell you something that will change everything." Sue felt his stomach tighten. "What is it?" "The test wasn't just to prove humans are special," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "It was to find someone compatible with me personally." "Compatible? What do you mean?" Queen Alara moved closer, and Sue could see something like nervousness in her ancient eyes. "Captain, my people don't reproduce the way humans do. We need a deep connection of minds and souls. For the past 1,000 years, no Velari has been able to form this connection. We've become too similar, too perfect." The walls around them began showing images, Velari ceremonies from long ago where two beings would stand together, their bodies glowing as some kind of energy passed between them. Then children would appear, somehow created from the union of their consciousness. "We need chaos to create life," Alara continued. "We need someone whose mind works differently from ours, someone who can think in ways we've forgotten how to think." Sue began to understand where this was going, and his heart started racing. "You're saying you need a human partner?" "Not just any human," she said softly. "The connection must be deep and complete. The minds must truly merge. It would change you. Captain, you would become something more than human, but also something that is no longer entirely human." The images on the walls shifted to show what looked like the same ceremony, but now one of the figures was clearly human, while the other was Velari. The human figure glowed with the same energy, but maintained their basic appearance. "What exactly would happen to me?" Sue asked. "You would gain abilities you cannot imagine," Alara explained. "You could communicate with our crystal technology directly, command our ships with your thoughts, and speak mind to mind across vast distances. You would live for thousands of years and possess knowledge accumulated over millennia." She paused, looking away. "But you would also be bound to me and to our people forever. There would be no going back to your old life." Sue stared at the images on the walls, trying to process what she was telling him. "And if I agree to this, what happens to your species?" "We would be reborn," she said, hope returning to her voice. "The union of human creativity and Velari knowledge would create something new. Our children would carry the best of both species. Your ability to adapt and grow, combined with our accumulated wisdom and technology." "You're asking me to marry you," Sue said simply. Queen Alara smiled, and it was the first truly warm expression he'd seen from her. "In human terms, yes, but it's more than that. I'm asking you to help me create a new form of life in the universe." She stepped closer, and when she spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. With an ethereal whisper, the alien queen asked, "Human, will you be my king?" The words hung in the air between them. Sue thought about his crew, his life on Earth, everything he would be leaving behind. But he also thought about the empty Velari cities, the dying civilization, and the possibility of creating something entirely new. "What about my crew?" he asked. "They would be honored guests in our new empire," Alara assured him. "We would take them safely back to Earth, or they could stay and help build our new civilization. The choice would be theirs." Sue looked out at the stars through the crystal walls. He thought about all the impossible decisions he'd made in his military career, all the times he'd chosen duty over personal desires. "I need time to think," he said finally. Queen Alara nodded. "Of course. But Captain, time is something we may not have much of. There are forces in the galaxy that would not welcome the rebirth of the Velari Empire." As if summoned by her words, alarms began sounding throughout the crystal ship. The crystal walls of Queen Alara's chamber suddenly blazed with red warning lights. The musical alarms that filled the air sounded nothing like human sirens, but the urgency was unmistakable. Sue's military instincts kicked in immediately. "What's happening?" he demanded. Queen Alara's face had gone pale, her earlier warmth replaced by cold fear. "They've found us," she whispered. "The Devourers are coming." Before Sue could ask what that meant, the chamber walls shifted to show space around them. What he saw made his blood freeze. Dozens of massive ships were approaching, but these weren't like anything he'd ever imagined. They looked like mechanical spiders made of dark metal, each one larger than Earth's biggest cities. As he watched, one of the smaller ships fired a beam at a nearby asteroid. The rock didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist, consumed completely. "Get me back to my crew," Sue ordered. They rushed through corridors that were now pulsing with warning lights. When they reached the main chamber, Park Min and the others were already on their feet, looking around nervously as Velari crew members moved with urgent purpose. "Captain, what's going on?" Choi Ho asked, his hand instinctively moving to his weapon. "We're about to have company," Sue replied grimly, "the bad kind." Queen Alara gestured to the walls, which now showed a tactical display that even the humans could understand. The spider-like ships were moving in perfect formation, their approach calculated and relentless. "These are the Devourers," Alara explained, to the human crew. "They are not alive in any sense we understand. They are machine intelligences that consume entire star systems to fuel their expansion." Li Na studied the display with growing horror. "Consume? You mean they eat planets?" "Everything," Alara confirmed. "Planets, stars, entire civilizations. They break down all matter and energy to build more of themselves. They have been spreading across the galaxy for over 1,000 years." "How many Velari worlds have they destroyed?" Park Min asked quietly. 43 of our 47 systems, Queen Alara replied, her voice heavy with grief. "We have been running from them ever. Since this ship and 2 others are all that remain of our once great empire." Choi Ho was studying the enemy formation. "How do you fight them?" "You don't," Alara said simply. "Every species that has tried to fight them has been consumed. The Karathi had weapons that could destroy stars. The Zenthi had shields that could protect entire planets. The Belgran had fleets of 1 million ships. All of them are gone now." Sue felt the weight of realization hitting him. "And now they're heading for Earth." "Yes," Alara confirmed. "We detected their long-range scouts in your solar system 3 months. HFY, we estimate they will reach Earth in less than 2 years." The chamber fell silent except for the continuing alarms. Li Na was the first to speak. 2 years? That's not enough time to evacuate Earth or build proper defenses. "No conventional defense would work anyway," Queen Alara said. "We have run detailed simulations. Even if every human on Earth was armed with our most advanced weapons, the Devourers would still consume your world within days." "Then why are you telling us this?" Sue asked. "If they can't be stopped, what's the point?" Queen Alara looked at him intently. "Because there might be one chance, one possibility that has never been tried before." She moved to the center of the chamber and the display changed to show both the approaching Devourers and the few remaining Velari ships. "The Devourers are perfect machines," she explained. "They calculate every possible outcome, predict every strategy, and adapt to counter any threat. They have never been defeated because they are designed to handle any logical response." "So, what are you suggesting?" Park Min asked. "Human consciousness joined with Velari technology," Alara said, looking directly at Sue. "The Devourers cannot predict chaos. They cannot adapt to strategies that make no logical sense, but somehow work." "Anyway," Choi Ho stepped forward. "You're talking about the bonding ceremony. You want the captain to undergo the transformation now, in the middle of a battle?" "It's our only hope," Alara replied. "Alone, the Velari are too predictable. The Devourers will consume us easily. But if Captain Sue becomes my king, if human adaptability merges with our technology, we might be able to do something the Devourers have never encountered before." The display zoomed in on the lead Devourer ship. It was massive beyond comprehension, its dark surface crawling with mechanical details that hurt to look at directly. "The bonding would have to happen now," Queen Alara continued. "The ceremony takes time, and the Devourers will be in weapons range within hours." Sue looked at his crew, seeing the fear and determination in their faces. The choice was no longer just about two species finding love. It was about survival itself. "If I do this," he said slowly, "what are our chances?" Queen Alara was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know," she admitted, "but without it, both our species will be extinct within 2 years." The Devourers grew larger on the display, their approach inexorable and terrifying. Time was running out. Captain Kim Soo looked at the approaching Devourer ships on the display, then at his crew's worried faces. The weight of 2 entire civilizations rested on his decision. "I'll do it," he said quietly. Park Min stepped forward. "Sir, are you sure about this? We don't know what this transformation will do to you." "I know," Sue replied, placing a hand on his first officer's shoulder. "But if we don't try, Earth dies. The Velari die, everyone dies." Queen Alara moved to his side. "The ceremony must begin immediately. Captain, are you ready?" Sue nodded, then turned to his crew one last time. "Whatever happens to me, remember that I chose this, and if something goes wrong, get back to Earth and warn them about the Devourers." The crystal chamber began to change around them. The walls rose higher, forming a perfect circle with intricate patterns that glowed with soft blue light. Queen Alara stood in the center, her translucent skin beginning to shimmer with energy. "Captain, please stand here," she said, indicating a spot directly across from her. As Sue moved into position, he felt a strange tingling in the air. The crystal floor beneath his feet grew warm, and he could hear a low humming sound that seemed to come from the ship itself. "The bonding requires complete trust," Queen Alara explained. "You must open your mind completely to mine. It may feel overwhelming at first." Li Na watched from the edge of the chamber, her engineering mind fascinated despite her worry. "What exactly is happening to him?" "His cellular structure is being altered," Alara replied as energy began to flow between her and Sue. "Human and Velari consciousness will merge, but his body will adapt to handle both forms of existence." The transformation began slowly. Sue felt a warmth spreading through his chest, like drinking hot tea on a cold day. But then it grew stronger, and he could feel something changing deep inside him. His vision sharpened until he could see individual light particles dancing in the air. His hearing became so acute that he could hear his crew's heartbeats. "Captain, can you hear me?" Park Min called out. Sue tried to answer, but what came out wasn't just his voice. It was also Queen Alara's, speaking in perfect harmony. "We can. Hear you clearly." Choi Ho took a step back. "That's unsettling." The energy flowing between Sue and Alara grew brighter, and suddenly Sue's consciousness exploded outward. He could feel the entire Valari ship around him, every crystal wall, every energy conduit, every system. The ship wasn't just a vessel anymore. It was an extension of his own body. But that wasn't all. His awareness kept expanding, reaching out into space itself. He could sense other Valari ships scattered across the galaxy, their crews in deep hibernation, waiting for a signal that their race might have hope again. "Now comes the most important part," Queen Alara said, her voice both spoken and telepathic. "We must awaken our sleeping people." Together they sent out a call that traveled faster than light across the galaxy. It wasn't words or music, but pure emotion, hope, determination, and the promise of new life. One by one, Sue felt the sleeping Valari responding, their ancient ships powering up for the first time in centuries. Park Min watched in amazement as his captain's appearance began to change. Sue's skin took on a faint luminescence, and his eyes now held depths that seemed to contain starlight, but somehow he was still recognizably human. "Captain?" Li Na called out hesitantly. Sue turned to look at her, and when he smiled, it was still his smile, though it carried new wisdom. "I'm still me," he said, his voice now carrying harmonics that made the crystal walls resonate. "But I'm also more than I was." He raised his hand, and the chamber walls showed them a map of the galaxy. Dozens of points of light were beginning to glow as dormant Valari ships awakened across hundreds of star systems. "We're not just 3 ships running from the Devourers anymore," he continued. "We're a fleet, and we're going to fight back." Queen Alara, now linked to him permanently, spoke with shared determination. "The Devourers have never faced anything like this. They cannot predict what we will do because we ourselves don't know. Yet, we are creating new possibilities with every moment." Choi Ho studied the tactical display. "How many ships are we talking about?" Sue's enhanced consciousness quickly counted the awakening signals. 237 Valari vessels are responding. Most have been sleeping for centuries, but they're all coming online now. "That's still not enough to fight the Devourers directly," Park Min pointed out. "No," Sue agreed, his human military training combining with Valari strategic knowledge. "But we're not going to fight them the way they expect. We're going to do something completely unpredictable." The transformation was complete. Captain Kim Soo was now something new. Human creativity merged with alien wisdom, chaos balanced with order, Earth's determination combined with the Valari's ancient knowledge. The real battle was about to begin. Within hours of the awakening, the first Valari ships began arriving through dimensional rifts that tore open space itself. Captain Kim Soo, now bearing the title of king among the Valari, stood on the bridge of their flagship as vessel after vessel materialized around them. "Incredible," Park Min breathed, watching the display as crystal ships of impossible beauty formed up in battle formations. "I've never seen anything like this. Each ship was unique. Some looked like flying cathedrals with spires of living crystal. Others resembled massive flowers made of light and metal. But all of them pulsed with the same energy that now flowed through Sue's transformed body. The crews have been sleeping for so long," Queen Alara explained, her consciousness now permanently linked with Sue's. "Many of them went into hibernation. When their worlds were consumed, they thought they would never wake again." Li Na was practically bouncing with excitement as she studied the technical readings. "Captain, I mean Your Majesty. These ships use technology that could revolutionize everything we know about physics. But there's a problem." "What is it?" Sue asked, his enhanced senses already detecting what she'd found. "Their weapons are designed for precision, not destruction. They're built to disable and capture, not to completely destroy an enemy. The Devourers won't be stopped by that kind of firepower." Sue nodded, his hybrid consciousness processing multiple solutions simultaneously. "That's where human ingenuity comes in. Can you work with their engineers to modify the weapon systems?" "Already on it." Li Na grinned. "I've got some ideas that are going to make these crystal ships a lot more dangerous." Meanwhile, Choi Ho was dealing with his own challenge. The Valari warriors who had awakened were skilled fighters, but they fought with elegant, dance-like movements that prioritized beauty over effectiveness. "No, no," Choi-ho said patiently to a group of tall, graceful Valari soldiers. "Forget about making it look pretty. In real combat, ugly and effective beats beautiful and dead every time." He demonstrated a simple human combat move, a quick, brutal strike designed to disable an opponent as fast as possible. The Valari watched with fascination, their perfect features showing surprise at the efficiency of the crude-looking technique. "Your species fights like you're performing art," Choi-ho continued, "but the Devourers don't care about art. They only understand destruction, so we need to speak their language." As the days passed, the hybrid fleet grew stronger. Li Na's modifications turned the Valari's elegant energy weapons into devastating tools of war. Instead of gentle beams that would carefully disable a ship's systems, they now fired concentrated bursts that could punch through the Devourer's armor plating. The human crew of the New Dawn found themselves in the strange position of being teachers to a civilization thousands of years older than their own. Park Min worked with Valari navigators to develop unpredictable flight patterns that the mechanical minds of the Devourers couldn't calculate in advance. "The key is randomness," he explained to his alien colleagues. "Your people plan everything perfectly, which makes you predictable. But if we make decisions that don't follow any pattern, the Devourers can't adapt to counter them." King Su spent his time coordinating the growing fleet, his consciousness touching each ship to ensure they were working together effectively. Through his bond with Queen Alara, he could feel the hope returning to the Valari people as they prepared for their first real chance to fight back against the machines that had destroyed their civilization. The moment of truth came 3 weeks later at the edge of human space. Long-range sensors detected the Devourer fleet approaching the outer planets of Earth's solar system. The mechanical ships moved in perfect formation, their dark hulls seeming to absorb light itself. 200 Devourer vessels, Park Min reported from his station. "They're larger than our projections indicated." "Good," King Su replied, surprising everyone. "Bigger targets are easier to hit." The crystal walls of the flagship showed the approaching enemy fleet. The Devourers looked like mechanical spiders crossed with warships, their hulls bristling with weapons designed to break down matter at the molecular level. "All ships, this is King Su," he broadcast to the entire hybrid fleet. "Today we fight not just for the Valari, not just for humanity, but for the right of organic life to exist in this galaxy. The Devourers think we're predictable. Let's prove them wrong." Queen Alara's voice joined his across the fleet communications. "Remember, we are no longer the same species that ran from them before. We are something new, something they have never encountered." The two fleets met in the void between Jupiter and Saturn, with the fate of two entire civilizations hanging in the balance. As the first shots were fired, King Su felt a grim satisfaction. The Devourers were about to learn that chaos could be just as powerful as order. The battle that would determine the future of the galaxy had begun. The battle began exactly as the Devourers expected. Their mechanical minds had calculated every possible strategy the Valari might use based on thousands of years of data. They spread their ships in perfect defensive formations, ready to counter any logical attack pattern. That's when King Su did something completely illogical. "All ships, break formation and attack randomly," he commanded. "Don't follow any plan, just pick a target and hit it as hard as you can." Park Min looked confused. "Sir, that goes against every military strategy we know." "Exactly," Su grinned, his hybrid consciousness processing the chaos in ways the Devourers never could. "They can't predict what we're going to do if we don't know ourselves." The Valari fleet scattered like leaves in the wind. Some ships dove straight into the enemy formation. Others circled around to attack from behind. A few even started flying in spirals for no apparent reason. To any military observer, it looked like complete madness. The Devourers tried to adapt, but their mechanical brains couldn't process the randomness. Every time they calculated a response to one group of ships, 3 other groups would do something completely different. Their perfect formations began to break apart as they struggled to counter strategies that made no logical sense. "It's working," Li Na shouted from her engineering station. "Their coordination is falling apart." Choi-ho was coordinating boarding parties on the ships that got close enough. The Valari warriors had learned his lessons well, abandoning their elegant fighting styles for brutal human efficiency. When they teleported onto Devourer ships, they didn't try to capture systems gracefully. They simply destroyed everything they could reach. "The machines keep trying to negotiate surrender," one Valari warrior reported. "They don't understand why we're not taking prisoners." "Because we're not trying to conquer them," King Su replied across the battle network. "We're trying to survive." The turning point came when Li Na's modified weapons proved their worth. Instead of trying to disable the Devourer ships piece by piece, the crystal weapons now delivered concentrated bursts that simply erased entire sections of enemy vessels from existence. But the real victory came from something the Devourers had never encountered before: genuine creativity in the heat of battle. When conventional weapons weren't enough, the hybrid crews started improvising. They used gravity wells as weapons, turned their own shield generators into battering rams, and even convinced some Devourer ships to attack each other by feeding them false data. "This is impossible," Park Min muttered, as he watched a group of Valari ships somehow convince 3 Devourer vessels that they were asteroids. "We're making up tactics that shouldn't work." "That's the point," Queen Alara said. Her consciousness merged with Sue's as they coordinated the impossible battle. "Logic says these tactics should fail, but we're not operating on logic anymore." The battle lasted 18 hours. When it was over, the Devourer fleet was completely destroyed, their mechanical precision no match for organic chaos guided by hybrid intelligence. In the months that followed, King Su and Queen Alara didn't establish the kind of empire the galaxy had seen before. Instead of conquered worlds, they created partnerships. Earth became the first planet to voluntarily join the new hybrid civilization, with humans and Valari working together to explore new ways of thinking and creating. The real miracle happened 2 years later. The first hybrid children were born, not just on the Valari homeworld, but on Earth as well. These children carried human creativity and Valari wisdom, but they were something entirely new. They could touch crystal technology with their minds, while also understanding the beauty of human chaos. Li Na, now serving as the chief engineer of the hybrid fleet, watched one of these children solve a complex engineering problem by simply asking the ship's crystal core to try something fun. The solution worked perfectly, even though it violated 3 laws of physics. "How did she do that?" Li Na asked the child's parents. "She didn't think about what was impossible," the human father replied. "She just thought about what would be interesting." Park Min, now an admiral in the hybrid fleet, established the new philosophy that guided their civilization. Perfect order leads to death, but perfect chaos leads to destruction. Life exists in the beautiful space between the two. Choi-ho became the trainer for a new kind of warrior, beings who could fight with both Valari precision and human unpredictability. They became the guardians of a galaxy that was learning to balance order with creativity. Years passed and the hybrid empire grew not through conquest, but through invitation. Species that had hidden from the Devourers for centuries emerged to join a civilization that celebrated both logic and chaos, both ancient wisdom and new ideas. King Su stood on the observation deck of his flagship, now permanently merged with Queen Alara in both consciousness and purpose. Through the crystal walls, he could see ships from dozens of species working together, creating art and technology that neither could have imagined alone. "Did we save the galaxy?" Queen Alara asked through their shared thoughts. "No," Su replied, watching a human child and a Valari youngling playing together in the corridor below. "We taught it how to save itself. Humanity hadn't conquered the stars. They had shown them how to dance."